But we begin in Ottawa, where a day after President Trump's tariff plan was unveiled to the world, the Prime Minister has responded. Stepping away from the campaign trail, Mark Carney says what the U.S. announced yesterday has fundamentally changed the global economy.
Yesterday's actions by the U.S. administration, while not specifically targeting Canada, will rupture the global economy and adversely affect global economic growth. The global economy is fundamentally different today than it was yesterday. The system of global trade anchored on the United States that Canada has relied on since the end of the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for our country for decades, is over.
For more, let's turn to our Karina Roman in Ottawa. So Karina, Carney spoke for a long time, really kind of expanding out some themes that we've heard from him in his short time as Prime Minister.
Yes, he did. He explained some of previous statements he's said about the relationship between Canada and the U.S., but he also finally unveiled what Canada's response to this latest development in tariffs in terms of being spared the reciprocal tariffs, but not the other tariffs that still remain on Canada, including the auto tariffs that came in overnight. So the response from Canada is that Canada will be matching the U.S. tariffs on autos. So that's 25% on all vehicles imported from the U.S. that are not compliant with CUSMA, and on non-Canadian content of CUSMA-compliant vehicles from the U.S. He says that it will not affect auto parts because Canada understands the benefits of highly integrated production system that we have. He is, and the government is, working on how to help the auto producers in Canada avoid the impact of these counter tariffs as long as they maintain their production and their investment here in Canada. These counter tariffs amount to about $8 billion worth today. That's on top of what was already in place that Canada had put on U.S. imports of $60 billion of retaliatory tariffs, as I said, that were already in place. So that brings us to 69 billion. All that money, Carney says, will go towards affected workers and businesses. And also he pointed out that Canada, of course, is challenging these tariffs in court at the World Trade Organization because they believe they're not only unjustified, but illegal. Carney, as you said, Andrew, elaborated on what he means when he says that the relationship with the U.S. is, as we know it, is over, and that the world is also discovering that. He said it's a tragedy, but it's also the reality. And he was asked point blank if the U.S. is still Canada's ally. Have a listen to what he had to say.
The U.S. is absolutely our ally. It's our ally in security and defense partnerships. It's our most important security ally, for example. It's still, even with these tariffs, the largest trading partners. The point I made last week, the point I made again today, is part of what our relationship has been based on, though, has been a degree of integration between our economies, our trade becoming closer and closer together. That is over. I mean, we saw that that was ending a while ago. It's now emphatic. I think the world is learning that that is over.
Now, Carney also said that what also seems to be over is the U.S.'s leadership role when it comes to the global economy, and that Canada is ready to step into that role if it is indeed being abandoned. On the economic harm front, he was asked about a potential recession for Canada and when or if that might happen. And he says that is certainly where the U.S. is headed, and it's rare for Canada to escape a recession if the U.S. goes into one, although it has been done. He pointed to the 2008 financial crisis when he also pointed out he was the governor of the Bank of Canada. But he said, with Canada's plan to build, to help workers through this difficult time, to really liberate internal trade in Canada, that Canada can avoid the worst of a slowdown and do better than the U.S.
And what other political reaction are you hearing?
Well, we heard from Ontario Premier Doug Ford today. We heard from him before Carney spoke. He was fresh off the call that the premiers had with the Prime Minister this morning. Of course, Doug Ford was reacting to the auto tariffs and reacting to Stellantis in Windsor shutting down for 2 weeks. He also talked about the plan, the response plan from Canada, but he said he was not going to reveal it at that time, that he would leave that for the Prime Minister, and basically then said that he supported that plan.